3 hours had passed since the battle footage ended. The Galactic Senate chamber remained filled with delegates, but nobody was speaking. The massive screen still showed the final image from the battle, the destroyed Marauder flagship burning like a new star against the darkness of space. Ambassador Hyun-woo. Kim had not moved from the central podium. He stood quietly, waiting for the aliens to process what they had witnessed. Some were staring at the screens in disbelief. Others were frantically calculating the implications on their personal data devices. A few had simply shut down their translation systems and were sitting in stunned silence. Finally, Prime Speaker Sisketh raised his massive head. His yellow eyes, which had been so full of mockery 3 months ago, now held something that looked like fear. Ambassador Kim, Sisketh said slowly, I believe we owe humanity an apology. The chamber stirred as other delegates began to pay attention. It was the first time in recorded galactic history that a Prime Speaker had apologized to another species. We judged your people based on your technology, Sisketh continued. We assumed that because your weapons were primitive, your military capabilities were also primitive. We were wrong. Queen Vex's compound eyes focused on Hyun-woo. Wrong is not a strong enough word. We were blind. We have been fighting the same way for so long that we forgot there might be other ways to think about warfare. Admiral Narissa of the Nebulan Collective shimmered with embarrassment. Our tactical computers ran thousands of simulations on how to defeat the Marauders. None of them suggested using primitive kinetic weapons because our computers considered such weapons obsolete. Your computers were not wrong, Hyun-woo replied diplomatically. Against most enemies, advanced weapons are more effective than primitive ones. But every strategy has weaknesses. Humans are good at finding those weaknesses because we have always had to fight enemies that were stronger than us. Diplomat Reth stood up, all 4 of her arms trembling slightly. Ambassador, I must ask a direct question. How dangerous are humans to the rest of the galaxy? The chamber went completely silent. It was the question that everyone was thinking, but nobody had dared to ask. Hyun-woo considered his answer carefully. That depends entirely on how the galaxy treats humanity. We have no desire to conquer other species or expand our territory. We simply want to be accepted as equals and allowed to contribute to the common defense. But if we refuse, asked Sisketh, if we maintain the human restriction protocol, then you will have made an enemy of a species that just proved it can defeat enemies you cannot, Hyun-woo replied quietly. I do not recommend that course of action. The implications hung in the air like a storm cloud. Every delegate was thinking the same thing. If humans could destroy the Marauders so easily, what could they do to the galactic fleet? There is another matter we must discuss, said a new voice. Everyone turned to look at the corner of the chamber where the ethereal collective had remained silent for most of the session. The glowing beings pulsed with soft light as their representative spoke. We have observed this species called humanity for some time, the ethereal continued. They are not like other races. They do not follow the patterns we have seen before. What do you mean? Asked Queen Vexa. Most species develop technology and then rely on that technology to solve their problems. Humans develop technology but continue to rely on themselves. They never stop thinking, never stop adapting, never stop learning new ways to overcome obstacles. The ethereal collective's light grew brighter. This makes them extremely dangerous to enemies, but also extremely valuable as allies. They will find solutions to problems that our advanced minds cannot even see. Fleet Admiral Yeonsu Park's image appeared on the main screen. She was broadcasting from her flagship, which was now in orbit around Earth. Honored Council, Admiral Park said. I have spent the past week observing human military facilities. I must report that what we saw in the battle was not a lucky accident. It was the result of careful planning and preparation by a species that thinks about warfare in ways we never considered. Explain, ordered Sisketh. Human military academies do not just teach students how to use weapons, Admiral Park continued. They teach them how to think like their enemies. They study ancient battles from their own history to learn how small forces have defeated large ones. They practice fighting against superior technology because that has been their situation for most of their development. Are you saying that all humans are trained for this kind of unconventional warfare? Asked Diplomat Reth. Not all, but enough. And more importantly, their entire military culture is based on the idea that there is always a solution if you are willing to think differently and take risks. Admiral Narissa's gaseous form swirled with concern. This species could reshape the entire balance of power in the galaxy. Yes, Hyunwoo agreed. But only if you force us to. Humans prefer cooperation to conflict. We would rather work with you than against you. Prime Speaker Susketh looked around the chamber at the other delegates. He could see the same mixture of fear and hope in their faces that he felt himself. Fear of what humans might do if they became enemies. Hope of what they might accomplish if they became allies. Ambassador Kim, Susketh said formally, the Galactic Council requests that humanity immediately join the Interstellar Defense Pact as a full member with all rights and privileges. Furthermore, added Queen Vexa, we would like to propose a cultural exchange program. Our military officers would benefit from studying human tactical methods. And our scientists, said Admiral Narissa, would like to understand how you managed to analyze Marauder technology so effectively in such a short time. Hyunwoo bowed respectfully. On behalf of humanity, I accept your invitation to join the Defense Pact. We look forward to working with all of you to protect the galaxy from future threats. There will be paperwork, Diplomat Reth said with what might have been a smile. Treaties to sign, protocols to establish, cultural exchanges to organize, and training programs, added Admiral Park from the screen. Human tactical doctrine should be studied by every military academy in the galaxy. As the formal proceedings began, the ethereal collective spoke one final time. There is something else the Council should know about humans, they said mysteriously. What is that? Asked Susketh. This battle was not the full extent of their capabilities. The 12 ships you saw were what humans call a scouting force. They have much larger fleets still hidden in their home system. The chamber went silent again, as everyone stared at Hyunwoo. Is this true? Queen Vexa asked. Hyunwoo nodded calmly. Earth Defense Command felt it would be wise to keep some forces in reserve until we knew how the galaxy would respond to our demonstration. How many ships? Susketh asked quietly. Enough, Hyunwoo replied with a slight smile. But as I said, we prefer cooperation to conflict. 6 months later, the first human military academy opened on the neutral world of Proxima Station. The waiting list for admission included officers from every major fleet in the galaxy. The academy's motto, carved in stone above the main entrance, read Adapt, Improvise, Overcome. Below it, in smaller text that had been requested by the first graduating class of alien officers, was another inscription. Never underestimate the humans. They remember everything. Captain Jin Ho Lee, now promoted to Admiral, stood in the Academy's main lecture hall addressing a mixed class of human and alien students. The first rule of human military doctrine, he told them, is that there are no rules. If something works, use it. If it does not work, try something else. Never be too proud to use simple weapons against advanced enemies. Never be too scared to attack when everyone expects you to retreat. A young Vorthak officer raised his clawed hand. Admiral, how do we learn to think like humans? Jinho smiled. Start by forgetting everything you think you know about how warfare is supposed to work. Then ask yourself, if I were weaker, smaller, and less advanced than my enemy, how would I find a way to win? And if we cannot find a way? Asked a Krek student. Then you are not thinking hard enough, Jinho replied. Humans have a saying, there is always a way. Sometimes you just have to be crazy enough to try it. In the back of the classroom, Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim listened to the lesson with satisfaction. Humanity had finally taken its place among the stars, not as the weakest species in the galaxy, but as the one that others came to when they needed to learn how to win impossible battles. The galaxy would never make the mistake of underestimating humans again, and more importantly, it would never have to face another threat like the Marauders, without the one weapon that had proven more powerful than any technology: human creativity applied to the art of war. Outside the Academy, ships from a dozen different worlds practiced the new tactical doctrines that human instructors were teaching them. The galaxy was learning to fight differently, to think differently, and to never assume that advanced technology was the only path to victory. The age of human influence in galactic affairs had begun. The Senate chamber had been converted into a massive viewing room. Every delegate, advisor, and military officer in the Galactic Council was present. The huge screens that normally showed star charts now displayed something that nobody could believe. Even though they were watching it happen, Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim stood at the central podium, but this time nobody was laughing. The chamber was so quiet, that the only sound was the soft humming of the life support systems. "Play the sequence again," requested Prime Speaker Susketh, his voice barely above a whisper. On the main screen, the battle footage began once more. Everyone watched as the massive galactic fleet attacked the Marauder ships with everything they had. Plasma cannons that could melt planets fired uselessly against adaptive shields. Antimatter bombs that could destroy moons were absorbed and reflected back at their creators. Then came the part that made even the bravest warriors in the galaxy hold their breath. 12 tiny human ships looking like toys compared to the alien dreadnoughts suddenly accelerated directly toward the enemy fleet. "Stop." "Here," called out Fleet Admiral Yansu Park. "Show us the weapons analysis." The screen switched to a technical display that broke down exactly what the human ships had fired. The numbers appeared in the air like floating text, translated into every galactic language. Kinetic projectiles, simple metal slugs accelerated by magnetic rails. Nuclear warheads, fusion bombs using technology over 1,000 years old. Electromagnetic pulse devices, basic electronic disruption weapons. Queen Vexa's compound eyes reflected the light from the screen. These weapons should not have worked. Our own analysis shows that Marauder shields can absorb kinetic energy up to 90% of light speed. Yet they did work, said Admiral Narissa of the Nebulon Collective. Her gaseous form rippled with confusion. The human projectiles were moving at only 30% of light speed. By all calculations, they should have been stopped easily. Hyunwoo cleared his throat. "May I explain what you are seeing?" The chamber turned to look at him. These beings who had mocked humanity's primitive technology now hung on every word from the human ambassador. "The key was not the speed of our weapons," Hyunwoo began. "It was their simplicity. The Marauder adaptive systems are designed to counter sophisticated threats. They analyze energy signatures, particle compositions, and quantum effects. They prepare defenses against the most advanced weapons in the galaxy." He gestured to the screen, which now showed a detailed breakdown of how Marauder shields functioned. But human weapons are so simple that the adaptive systems do not recognize them as threats until it is too late. A chunk of metal moving through space is just debris as far as their computers are concerned. Nuclear fusion is a natural process that happens in every star. Diplomat Reth leaned forward with her forearms clasped together. "But surely their shields could still stop simple kinetic projectiles." "Yes, if they tried to," Hyunwoo replied. "But the adaptive systems have to identify a threat before they can adapt to it. Our weapons were too primitive to trigger their recognition protocols." The screen changed to show the moment when the human nuclear warheads exploded. The electromagnetic pulses spread out like invisible waves washing over the Marauder fleet. The nuclear explosions served two purposes, Hyunwoo continued. First, they created electromagnetic interference that disrupted the adaptive systems at their most vulnerable moment. Second, they convinced the Marauder computers that they were dealing with a natural phenomenon rather than an attack. Prime Speaker Sisketh's clawed hands gripped his platform. "You are saying that their own sophistication was their weakness?" "Exactly. The Marauder technology was so advanced that it could not comprehend something truly simple. It is like trying to use a quantum computer to add 2 plus 2. The system is too complex for such a basic problem." The chamber erupted in excited conversations. Military officers were frantically taking notes. Scientists were arguing about the implications. Politicians were already calculating how this information could be used. "Show us the final attack," demanded Admiral Park. The screen displayed the climactic moment when the human ships targeted the Marauder command vessel. A single small object detached from one of the human ships and drifted toward the enemy flagship. "What was that final weapon?" Queen Vexa asked. Hyunwoo smiled. "A conventional chemical explosive. The kind of bomb that humans have been making for hundreds of years." The chamber went silent again. They watched as the tiny bomb attached itself to the massive Marauder ship and exploded. The resulting cascade failure destroyed a vessel that had been thought indestructible. "Impossible," breathed Admiral Narissa. "How could such a primitive device destroy their flagship?" "Because it was not detected," Hyunwoo explained. "The Marauder sensors were calibrated to look for sophisticated threats. A simple chemical bomb did not register on their instruments any more than a pebble would." "But how did you know where to place it?" asked Sisketh. "We studied their ships for 3 months," Hyunwoo replied. "While you were planning grand strategies and preparing advanced weapons, human intelligence officers were analyzing every piece of wreckage, every sensor reading, Every survivor report. We learned how their ships were built and where their weak points were located. The screen now showed technical diagrams of Marauder vessels with critical systems, highlighted in red. You did what we should have done, Admiral Park said quietly. You treated them like an enemy to be understood, not just a problem to be overpowered. Diplomat Reth stood up slowly. Ambassador Kim, how many humans were involved in this analysis? Several thousand, Hyunwoo replied. Military analysts, engineers, physicists, historians, psychologists, and many others. We approached the problem from every possible angle. Historians? Queen Vexa asked. What do historians have to do with space warfare? Human historians study how wars are won and lost, Hyunwoo explained. They told us that throughout our history, the most advanced armies have often been defeated by simpler forces that thought differently. The chamber was beginning to understand something that changed everything they thought they knew about warfare. Technology was not enough. Weapons were not enough. Even superior numbers were not enough if you did not understand your enemy. There is something else, Hyunwoo said. Something that you need to know about how humans fight. Every being in the chamber leaned forward. We do not fight to show how powerful we are, Hyunwoo continued. We fight to win. If that means using primitive weapons against advanced enemies, we use primitive weapons. If that means attacking when everyone expects us to retreat, we attack. If that means sacrificing honor for victory, we sacrifice honor. Prime Speaker Sisketh's yellow eyes narrowed. Are you saying that humans have no sense of honor in battle? I am saying that humans define honor differently, Hyunwoo replied. For us, honor means protecting those who cannot protect themselves. Honor means never giving up when the innocent are in danger. Honor means doing whatever it takes to ensure that our families and friends can live in safety. The chamber was quiet as the implications sank in. These beings had built their entire military culture around advanced technology and formal combat protocols. They fought according to rules that had been established over millions of years. But humans fought according to only one rule. Win. Show us the final statistics, requested Admiral. Narissa. The screen displayed the battle results in cold numbers. Galactic fleet losses, 847 ships destroyed. 12,000 personnel killed, human fleet losses. 0 ships destroyed. 3 personnel wounded, Marauder fleet losses. Completely destroyed. Survivors fled beyond Galactic Rim. The silence in the chamber was deafening. The most powerful military forces in the galaxy had been helpless against an enemy that 12 human ships had completely defeated. How do we know the Marauders will not return? Asked Sisketh. Hyunwoo smiled grimly. Because they now know that the galaxy contains a species that can think differently than they do. They will not risk facing humans again until they can adapt their own thinking. And how long will that take? Unknown. But humans are still learning too. By the time they figure out how to counter our current tactics, we will have developed new ones. For the first time in galactic history, an entire chamber full of advanced alien species sat in stunned silence, contemplating the possibility that the most primitive race they had ever encountered might also be the most dangerous. The battle began exactly as every other battle against the Marauders had begun. The massive alien fleet moved into attack formation, with the precision of a deadly dance that had been practiced for thousands of years. Captain Jin Ho, Lee watched from the bridge of the Incheon as the Vorthak dreadnoughts opened fire first. Green beams of plasma energy lit up the darkness of space, each one hot enough to melt through a mountain. Behind them, the Krex bioships launched clouds of living missiles that moved like angry insects toward their targets. The Nebulon collective vessels created ripples in space itself, sending gravity waves that should have crushed the Marauder ships like tin cans. Other alien fleets contributed their own exotic weapons, particle beams, quantum torpedoes, and energy disruptors that could tear apart matter at the atomic level. For a moment, it looked like the combined alien fleet might actually win. The space around the Marauder position was filled with enough destructive energy to sterilize an entire solar system. Then, the Marauder shields activated. The dark ships began to glow, with a strange light that hurt to look at. The plasma beams that struck them were absorbed completely, their energy somehow captured and stored. The living missiles from the Krex ships slowed down and stopped, as if they had forgotten how to move. The gravity waves from the Nebulon vessels simply bent around the Marauder ships without affecting them at all. Impossible. whispered Lieutenant So-Min Choi, staring at her tactical display. Their shields are adapting in real time to every type of weapon. On the communications channel, Admiral Talth's voice was filled with panic. All ships increase firepower. Try different weapon frequencies. But it was too late. The Marauder shields had learned everything they needed to know. Worse than just defending, they began to fight back. The energy they had absorbed from the alien weapons was reflected back at the attackers, but stronger and more focused than before. Green plasma beams that had been fired by Vorthax ships came racing back as red death rays that cut through alien hulls like paper. The gravity waves that the Nebulon Collective had created returned as crushing force that began to squeeze their gaseous ships into tiny balls. Captain, Corporal Minji-han reported from the communication station. The alien fleet is taking heavy casualties. Admiral Talth is ordering all ships to retreat to minimum safe distance. Jin-Ho nodded calmly. Maintain our position. Let them withdraw. Sir? So-Min looked confused. Should we not retreat with them? No, Lieutenant. We are exactly where we need to be. On the main screen, the alien fleet was pulling back in disorder. Ships that had never known defeat were running away from an enemy they could not understand. Some of the larger vessels were already showing signs of critical damage. Human vessels, Admiral Talth's voice crackled over the communication system. Retreat immediately. This enemy is beyond anything we have faced before. Jin-Ho picked up the communication microphone. Admiral, we respectfully request permission to remain in position for observation purposes. Are you insane? Queen Vexa's voice joined the channel. Those ships will destroy you in seconds. Perhaps, Jin-Ho replied. But someone needs to gather data on their tactics. What the aliens did not know was that the humans had been gathering data for the past 20 minutes. While the alien ships were attacking and retreating, So-Min had been carefully timing the Marauder adaptive responses. Captain, she said quietly, the pattern is exactly what we predicted. Their shields cycle through adaptation phases every 47 seconds. There is a brief window during each cycle when they are vulnerable. Sergeant Wu Jin Nam looked up from his engineering station. All weapons are charged and ready, sir. The special packages are armed. Jin-Ho looked around at his crew. They were about to attempt something that every military expert in the galaxy would call suicide. 12 small ships were going to attack an enemy that had just defeated the largest fleet in galactic history. All human ships, Jin-Ho announced on the tactical frequency. This is Captain Lee. Execute attack pattern Crazy Ivan on my mark. The name came from an old Earth military tactic. When submarines were being hunted by superior forces, they would sometimes turn directly toward their enemies and attack at close range. It was unexpected, dangerous, and often the only way to survive. Remember, Jin-Ho continued, we only get one shot at this. If we miss our window, there will not be a second chance. The 12 human ships suddenly broke formation and accelerated directly toward the Marauder fleet. Their chemical rocket engines left bright trails in space as they charged into what looked like certain death. What are the humans doing? Prime Speaker Sisketh's voice echoed over the open channels. They are flying straight into the enemy guns. They have lost their minds, Admiral Talth replied. Those primitive ships will be vaporized. But something strange was happening. As the human ships approached, the Marauder adaptive shields began to flicker uncertainly. The defensive systems that had easily handled plasma cannons and antimatter bombs seemed confused by the approaching vessels. 30 seconds to firing range, So-Min reported. Marauder weapons are targeting us, but their lock is unstable. 20 seconds, Wu Jin called out. All systems showing green. Dark energy beams lanced out from the Marauder ships trying to destroy the approaching humans. But the human vessels were small and fast, darting between the massive alien ships in patterns that seemed random, but were actually carefully calculated. 10 seconds, So-Min announced. Shield cycle timing confirmed. Window opening in 5, 4, 3, 2. Mark, all ships, fire! Jin-Ho commanded. What came out of the human weapons was not what anyone expected. Instead of energy beams or exotic particles, the human ships launched simple metal projectiles accelerated to incredible speeds by magnetic railguns. Following closely behind were nuclear warheads, ancient by galactic standards but modified with human engineering. The Marauder shields, designed to adapt to energy weapons and exotic matter, had no idea what to do with chunks of metal moving at significant fractions of light speed. The relativistic projectiles punched through their defenses like they were not there. The nuclear explosions that followed were precisely timed to create electromagnetic pulses at the exact moment when the Marauder adaptive systems were most vulnerable. Instead of trying to destroy the enemy ships directly, the humans targeted their ability to adapt. Direct hits on 3 Marauder dreadnoughts, Somin reported with excitement. Their adaptive systems are going offline. Secondary explosions across the enemy fleet, Wu Jin added. Looks like their own technology is turning against them. What the humans had discovered was that the Marauder adaptive technology had a weakness. It was so sophisticated that it could not handle simple primitive attacks. When faced with basic kinetic energy and electromagnetic interference, the adaptive systems became confused and began to overload. All ships, continue the attack, Jinho ordered. Target their command vessels while their shields are down. The human ships moved through the Marauder formation like deadly insects, too small and fast for the massive alien weapons to track effectively. They fired their simple weapons with deadly precision, each shot carefully aimed at critical systems that the enemy had left unprotected. Captain, Minji reported, I am reading massive power fluctuations throughout the Marauder fleet. Their adaptive technology is failing across multiple ships. Their command ship is trying to retreat, Somin added. Should we pursue? Jinho looked at the tactical display. The Marauder flagship was indeed trying to escape, but it was moving slowly, clearly damaged by the human attack. Launch Package 7, he ordered. Package 7 was the final surprise in the human arsenal. It was not a kinetic weapon or a nuclear warhead. It was something even simpler. A conventional explosive device that had been precisely engineered to create a cascade failure in the specific type of power core that the Marauders used. The bomb was small, primitive, and completely invisible to the sophisticated Marauder sensors. It attached itself to the enemy flagship like a metal parasite and detonated exactly where human intelligence had predicted it would do the most damage. The explosion that followed lit up the entire Korvax system. The Marauder command ship, which had never been defeated in 1,000 battles, simply ceased to exist. Confirmed kill on the enemy flagship, Somin announced. Remaining Marauder vessels are retreating at maximum speed. On the communication channels, the alien fleet was silent. Then slowly voices began to speak. Impossible, Admiral Talth whispered. How did they do that? Queen Vexa asked. 12 ships, Prime Speaker Siskith said in amazement. 12 primitive human ships just defeated an enemy that destroyed our entire Outer Rim fleet. Jinho sat back in his captain's chair and smiled. Minji, send a message to the alien fleet. Tell them the area is secure and they can return to normal operations. What should I tell them about our tactics, sir? Jinho thought for a moment. Tell them that humans fight differently because we learned to hunt in packs on a planet where everything was trying to kill us. 3 months had passed since the Galactic Council rejected humanity's request. Hyunwoo Kim was still on the council station, serving as Earth's observer. He spent his days in a small office, writing reports that nobody read and attending meetings where nobody listened to him. Then everything changed. The emergency alarm started screaming at 4 a.m, station time. Red lights flashed in the corridors as Hyunwoo rushed from his quarters toward the Senate chamber. Other aliens were running too, their faces showing fear and panic. The chamber doors burst open as council members poured inside. Nobody was laughing now. Prime Speaker Siskith looked scared for the first time since Hyunwoo had met him. Queen Vex's compound eyes were flashing with urgent light patterns. Even the calm Nebulon collective beings seemed agitated, their gas forms swirling faster than usual. Emergency session is now in order, Sisketh announced, his voice shaking slightly. Fleet Admiral Yonsu Park of the Vorthak Navy will brief us on the situation. A female lizard alien appeared on the main screen. Her scales were scratched and burned and her uniform was torn. Behind her, Hyunwoo could see the bridge of a warship with sparks flying from damaged equipment. Honored Council, Admiral Park began. I am broadcasting from the remnants of our defensive fleet at the Keras Nebula. The situation is worse than our worst predictions. The main screen changed to show a map of the galaxy. Red marks covered huge sections of the outer rim, spreading like a disease toward the center where the Council worlds were located. The Void Marauders have broken through our defensive lines, Admiral Park continued. They are moving toward the core worlds with a fleet larger than we have ever seen. But that is not the worst part. The screen showed battle footage that made even the brave Council members gasp. Huge alien ships were being torn apart by strange black vessels that seemed to absorb light. The black ships moved in ways that defied physics, twisting and bending space around them. The Marauders have new technology, Admiral Park explained. Their ships adapt to our weapons in real time. When we fire plasma cannons, their shields learn to absorb plasma energy. When we use antimatter weapons, they develop antimatter resistance within minutes. Queen Vexa's antennae drooped with despair. How many ships have we lost? 70% of the Outer Rim fleet is gone, Admiral Park replied. The Karis Defense Force was completely destroyed. The Vorthak Third Fleet lasted only 6 hours against them. The chamber filled with frightened whispers and panicked clicking sounds. These were the most powerful military forces in the galaxy, and they were being destroyed like toys. How long until they reach the core worlds? Asked Diplomat Reth, her blue skin pale with fear. Admiral Park checked her instruments. At their current speed, 6 months. Maybe less if they split their forces and attack multiple routes. Prime Speaker Susketh stood up, his huge form trembling. What are our options? Can we evacuate the core worlds? Can we negotiate with them? The Marauders do not negotiate, Admiral Park said grimly. They take what they want and destroy everything else. As for evacuation, we have billions of civilians on hundreds of worlds. Even if we had enough ships, which we do not, where would we take them? The chamber erupted in chaos. Aliens were shouting at each other in dozens of languages. Some demanded immediate military action. Others wanted to flee to distant galaxies. A few suggested surrendering and hoping for mercy. In the middle of all the noise, Hyunwoo stood up and raised his hand. At first, nobody noticed him. Then slowly, one by one, the aliens became aware of the small human standing quietly in his corner. Ambassador Kim, Susketh said with barely controlled anger. This is not the time for human observations. We are facing the greatest crisis in galactic history. I understand, Hyunwoo replied calmly. That is why I am offering Earth's assistance. The chamber went completely silent. Then the laughter started again, but this time it was different. It was not mocking laughter, but the desperate laughter of beings who had nothing left to lose. Your assistance? Queen Vexa asked in disbelief. Human. We just told you that our most advanced fleets are being destroyed. What could your 12 primitive ships possibly do? Sometimes the best solutions come from unexpected places, Hyunwoo said. You have been fighting the Marauders the same way for decades. Maybe it is time to try something different. Admiral Park's image leaned forward on the screen. Different how? We have the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. If antimatter bombs and plasma cannons cannot stop them, what can? I do not know yet, Hyunwoo admitted. But humans have experience fighting enemies that seem impossible to defeat. We have won many battles against stronger opponents by thinking in new ways. Diplomat Reth shook her four-armed head. This is not a game, human. The Marauders have technology that makes our weapons useless. They have ships that break the laws of physics. What can primitive human tactics possibly do against that? Hyunwoo opened his briefcase and pulled out a datapad. May I show you something? This is a recording from one of your recent battles against the Marauders. The screen changed to show a Vorthak fleet engaging Marauder ships. The alien vessels fired their plasma cannons in perfect formation, creating a wall of green energy, but the Marauder shield simply absorbed the attack and sent it back twice as strong. Your tactics are very impressive, Hyunwoo said, but they are also very predictable. You attack in formation. You use your most powerful weapons first. You fight with honor and follow military protocols. And what is wrong with that? Prime Speaker Susketh demanded. Nothing if your enemy fights the same way, Hyunwoo replied. But the Marauders do not care about honor or protocols. They adapt to whatever you do and turn your own strength against you. The chamber was quiet now, listening despite themselves. Humans have a saying, Hyunwoo continued. When you cannot win by being stronger, you win by being smarter. When you cannot win by following the rules, you win by changing the game. Admiral Park's voice came from the screen. What exactly are you proposing, Ambassador? Give us permission to study the Marauders. Let our ships join your forces not as members of the Defense Pact, but as observers. If we can find a weakness, we will share it with you. And if you cannot? Queen Vexa asked. Hyunwoo smiled grimly. Then you will be no worse off than you are now. But if we can find a way to defeat them, would it not be worth the risk? The aliens looked at each other uncertainly. Their advanced technology was failing them. Their powerful fleets were being destroyed. Maybe, just maybe, It was time to listen to the primitive humans. In the corner of the chamber, the mysterious glowing beings that had never spoken before suddenly pulsed with bright light. Their voice echoed strangely as if it came from very far away. The humans speak wisdom, they said. Sometimes the smallest key opens the largest door. It was the first time anyone could remember the ethereal collective speaking in a council session. The vote was close, closer than anyone expected. Many council members still thought letting humans join the fight was foolish. But the ethereal collective's unexpected support, combined with growing desperation, tipped the balance. The motion passes by 3 votes, Prime Speaker Susketh announced, his voice filled with doubt. Humanity is granted permission to deploy 1 task force to assist in the defense against the Marauders. However, they will not be official members of the Defense Pact. Their actions will not represent the Council, and they participate at their own risk. Ambassador Hyun-woo bowed respectfully. Thank you, honored delegates. We will not disappoint you. Queen Vex's compound eyes flashed with skepticism. See that you do not get in our way, human. When the real fighting begins, stay back and let the professional warriors handle it. 2 weeks later, Captain Jin-ho Lee stood on the bridge of the Earth defense ship Incheon. Through the main viewing window, he could see the assembled galactic fleet. It was the largest military force ever gathered in the history of the galaxy. Massive Vorthak dreadnoughts floated like metal mountains in space. Each one was 5 times larger than Earth's biggest ship. Krek's bioships writhed through the darkness, their living hulls pulsing with organic weapons. Nebulon collective vessels looked like captured clouds, their gaseous forms crackling with energy weapons. Among all these impressive ships, the human task force looked tiny and primitive. 12 vessels that barely deserved to be called spaceships, powered by chemical rockets and armed with weapons that the aliens considered ancient history. Captain, said Lieutenant So-min Choi from the tactical station, we are receiving communications from the Allied fleet. Jin-ho nodded. Put it on speaker. The bridge filled with alien voices, most of them speaking through translation devices. The comments were not encouraging. Look at the human ships, one Vorthak officer was saying. They look like flying scrap metal. I heard they still use nuclear weapons, a Krek's warrior clicked. Nuclear weapons? My hatchlings play with more dangerous toys. Why are we even letting them come with us? Asked a Nebulon pilot. They will just get in the way when the shooting starts. Lieutenant So-min looked uncomfortable. Should I turn off the communications, Captain? No, Jin-ho replied calmly. Let them talk. Words cannot hurt us, and soon they will have more important things to worry about. At the tactical station, So-min was studying the data they had collected about the Marauders. For 3 months, while the aliens argued and planned, the humans had been doing something different. They had been learning. Every piece of wreckage from destroyed ships had been analyzed. Every survivor's story had been recorded and studied. Every battle report had been examined by teams of human military experts back on Earth. Captain, So-min said quietly, the pattern analysis is complete. I think we understand how their adaptive technology works. Sergeant Woo-jin Nam looked up from the engineering station. The modifications are ready too, sir. All weapons have been prepared according to the new specifications. At the communications station, Corporal Min-ji Han was monitoring the fleet channels. Sir, Admiral Talth is requesting that we take position at the rear of the formation. The main screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Talth of the Nebulon Collective. The gaseous being's form sparkled with what might have been amusement. Captain Lee, Admiral Talth said, I want to make our strategy clear. The real warships will engage the enemy first. Your vessels will remain at a safe distance and observe. When we have defeated the Marauders, you can examine the wreckage for your research. Jin-ho nodded politely. Understood, Admiral. We will follow your orders. Good. And Captain, when the fighting starts, do not try to be heroes. Space combat is not like your primitive Earth wars. One mistake will get your entire crew killed. After the transmission ended, So-min turned to Jin-ho with a puzzled expression. Captain, are we really going to stay in the back? Jin-ho smiled. Lieutenant, sometimes the best place to strike from is where your enemy least expects you. The human captain walked to the viewing window and looked out at the alien fleet. These beings had technology that humanity could barely understand. They had weapons that could destroy planets and shields that could stop anything. But they had forgotten something important. They had become so focused on having the biggest weapons and the strongest shields that they had stopped thinking about strategy. They fought the same way every time, using the same tactics, following the same patterns. "Wu Jin," Jinho called to his engineer. "How long until we reach the Marauder position?" 6 hours, Captain. The alien ships are moving at their standard fleet speed. "And our special modifications?" Wu Jin grinned. "Ready for deployment, sir. The aliens think we are carrying standard human weapons. They have no idea what we have really prepared." Jinho looked around at his small crew. So Min Choi had graduated top of her class from the Earth Defense Academy. Wu Jin Nam was one of the most creative engineers in the human fleet. Min Ji Han could speak 12 languages and had studied alien psychology for years. They were not the most advanced crew in the galaxy. Their ship was not the most powerful. Their weapons were not the most sophisticated. But they had something the aliens had lost: the ability to think differently. "Captain," Minji reported, "we are receiving intelligence updates from the scouting ships. The Marauders are positioned near the ruins of Korvac Prime, just as predicted. Any changes to their formation or tactics?" "No, sir. They are using the same adaptive defense strategy that destroyed the Karis fleet." Jinho nodded. That was exactly what he had hoped to hear. The Marauders were so confident in their adaptive technology that they did not bother changing their approach. They would adapt to whatever the aliens threw at them, just like they always did. But they would not be adapting to standard galactic weapons. They would be adapting to something they had never seen before: human creativity combined with human stubbornness. "All stations prepare for combat," Jinho announced. "Remember, we only get one chance to surprise them. After that, they will adapt to whatever we do." "Captain," Somin asked, "what if our plan does not work? What if the Marauders can adapt to our weapons too?" Jinho looked at her seriously. "Then we try something else. And if that does not work, we try again. That is what humans do, Lieutenant. We never give up and we never stop learning." On the main screen, the first images of the Marauder fleet appeared. Dark ships that seemed to absorb light, moving in formations that hurt to look at. The same ships that had destroyed every force sent against them. But Jinho was not worried. The aliens saw 12 primitive human ships that would probably be destroyed in the first few minutes of battle. What they did not see was 12 ships full of humans who had spent their entire species. History turning disadvantages into victories. The huge metal doors of the Galactic Senate chamber opened with a deep rumbling sound. Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim walked through them, his black shoes clicking on the smooth crystal floor. The chamber was enormous, bigger than any building he had ever seen on Earth. The ceiling stretched up so high that he could barely see it in the dim light. Around him, strange creatures filled the floating seats. Some looked like giant lizards with glowing eyes. Others appeared to be made of floating gas that sparkled with tiny lights. Still others resembled huge insects with many arms and legs. They all turned to look at him as he walked toward the center of the room. Hyunwoo wore his best dark blue suit, the one with the Earth flag patch on his shoulder. He carried a small silver briefcase that contained all of humanity's hopes for joining the galactic community. His heart beat fast, but he kept his face calm and serious. The center of the chamber had a tall crystal platform that rose from the floor like a mountain. Hyunwoo stepped onto the glowing lift that carried him up to the top. When he reached the speaking area, he looked out at hundreds of alien faces staring back at him. "Honored delegates of the Galactic Council," Hyunwoo began, his voice echoing through the chamber. "I am Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim, representing the planet Earth and all of humanity. We come before you today with a simple request." A low rumbling sound came from the lizard-like creatures. The gas beings made soft whistling noises. The insect aliens clicked their many arms together. It did not sound friendly. "We wish to join the Interstellar Defense Pact," Hyunwoo continued. "Earth offers our military forces to help protect the galaxy from any threats that may come." The rumbling and clicking grew louder. Then someone started to laugh. It was a harsh hissing sound that came from the largest lizard creature. Soon other aliens joined in with their own strange versions of laughter. The big lizard alien floated forward on a metal platform. His scales were dark green and covered with scars. His yellow eyes were as big as dinner plates. When he spoke, his voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "I am Prime Speaker Susketh of the Vorthak Empire," the lizard said. "Tell us, little human, what exactly can your tiny species offer to defend the galaxy?" Hyunwoo opened his briefcase and pulled out a datapad. "We have a fleet of 12 interstellar ships. We have nuclear weapons, kinetic weapons, and advanced tactical systems. Our military has experience in many different types of warfare. The laughter grew even louder. A huge insect alien with glowing compound eyes leaned forward. I am Queen Vexa of the Krex hive mind. Your 12 ships? We have fleets of thousands. Your nuclear weapons? We stopped using such primitive tools a million years ago. Another voice joined in. This one came from a cloud of sparkling gas that somehow spoke with a woman's voice. I am Admiral Narissa of the Nebulon Collective. Human, your ships barely leave your own solar system. How can you defend anything when you cannot even travel properly between the stars? Hyunwoo felt his face get hot, but he did not let his anger show. It is true that we are new to space travel, but humans have qualities that might surprise you. We are very good at adapting to new situations. We never give up, even when things look impossible, and we have ways of fighting that you might not expect. Prime Speaker Sisketh's forked tongue flicked out of his mouth. Adapting? Not giving up? Human war in space is not about courage or determination. It is about technology. It is about having weapons that can destroy entire planets. It is about shields that can stop any attack. The lizard alien waved one clawed hand and a huge screen appeared in the air above the chamber. It showed images of human military equipment. Earth's rockets looked tiny compared to the alien ships. Human tanks and jets looked like toys next to the alien war machines. Look at your primitive weapons, Sisketh continued. You still use chemical rockets? You still explode things with fire and metal. We have plasma cannons that burn hotter than stars. We have antimatter bombs that can erase matter from existence. What could you possibly teach us about warfare? An elegant alien with smooth blue skin and 4 arms stood up. I am Diplomat Reth of the Centauri Federation. Perhaps the humans could help with supply runs or medical support. Let the real warriors handle the fighting. More laughter filled the chamber. Hyunwoo closed his briefcase and looked around at all the alien faces. They thought humans were weak and stupid. They thought Earth had nothing to offer. You are making a mistake, Hyunwoo said quietly. Humans may not have the biggest ships or the most powerful weapons, but we have something else. We have survived on a dangerous planet for thousands of years. We have learned to win fights against enemies that were bigger and stronger than us. Queen Vexa's antenna twitched with amusement. Oh, and how exactly do weak little humans win fights against bigger enemies? We think differently, Hyunwoo replied. We use our brains instead of just our weapons. We find new ways to solve problems. We work together, and we never stop trying until we win. The chamber erupted in the loudest laughter yet. Prime Speaker Sisketh slammed his clawed hand on his platform. Enough of this foolishness. We are the Galactic Council. We have defended this galaxy for millions of years. We do not need help from a species that has not even learned to build proper spaceships. The lizard alien looked around the chamber. All in favor of maintaining the human restriction protocol? Alien hands, claws, tentacles, and other appendages rose all around the chamber. The vote was overwhelming. Only one group did not vote. A section of strange, glowing beings that Hyunwoo had never seen before. The motion passes, Sisketh announced. Humans will remain restricted from joining the Defense Pact until they develop proper technology and prove they are worthy of membership. Hyunwoo bowed politely. Thank you for your time, honored delegates. I hope that someday you will reconsider. As he walked back toward the doors, he could hear the aliens still laughing and making jokes about the monkey species and primitive Earth weapons. But Hyunwoo was not discouraged. He had expected this response. Humans had always been underestimated. Throughout history, bigger and stronger enemies had laughed at humanity's chances, but those enemies had learned, usually too late, that humans were much more dangerous than they appeared. Someday, Hyunwoo thought as he left the chamber, the galaxy would learn that lesson too.